Greetings, I'm Reverend Monroe Anthony, President of Detroit Branch NAACP. Welcome once again to another segment of Let the Record Reflect. You know, we try to bring to you issues, personalities, and people, and events that are very pertinent to the life of our city, our state, our nation, and our region. And certainly nothing is more paramount to all of us than our own city in terms of what's going on here. And I'm very pleased to have with me my very special guest, the Honorable Mayor of the City of Detroit, the Honorable Mayor Dave Bing. Mayor Bing, welcome to Let the Record Reflect.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend. Good to see you again.
And you know, on the record reflecting that we got some serious issues. Charles Dickens once said that these are the best of times and the worst of times. And so when you became mayor, did you ever in your wildest imagination that you'd be in this deep and that you would, have you found stuff that you didn't know you was gonna find?
Still finding stuff. Just unbelievable.
Right.
You know, you think you know what you were getting into just based on having been in the city for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Never been in politics, but
Right.
Been around it.
Right.
And, you know, based on what happened in the last administration, I made the decision to move forward in a leadership role, thinking that I could make a difference. I think I've made a difference, but at the same token, things were in such disarray that it's taken us much more time to really correct some of the things that was going on. And so we've done that, and I think now we're ready to take off.
Your profession, and folk know you've been an all-star national basketball player and in the Hall of Fame and all of that. If you had to describe where we are in basketball terms, if you were in the national championships and there was a big hot game, how would you describe us if you used the analogy of a basketball game?
I would say that we're in the third quarter. We're behind, and we've got to make sure that we do everything. Number one, you got to play a lot of defense because you got to stop the other team, and then you've got to score.
Okay. Can we score, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, we can score.
Are we going to slam dunk, or are we laying up, or what we doing?
I would prefer layup because I can make all that.
I see. People really don't understand, I think, the depth of the crisis of the city. They hear, they see cutting, they see we got a deficit, they see all this stuff. How critical is the financial situation of the city, and if you could tell the people how serious it is, what would you say to them?
We were in a crisis before I came into this position, and we are still in a crisis. There was talk when I first came in that we would have payless paydays within the first 90 to 120 days. I am now in my 38th month, and we have not had a payless payday, but we're still not out of trouble. When we look at the revenue that's coming into the city, it's all gone south, and it's going to continue to go south for some time. And we have not been able to cut expenses quick enough.
Let me ask you this. When it talks about revenue, we used to have a big tax base in Detroit. We don't have that like we used to. We used to have residency. We don't have that like we used to. What were some of the revenue generators that we used to have that we don't have now? And understanding that, where new sources, or where are we trying to go to generate some new revenue?
Well, I think the biggest revenue source has been the income tax. I go back to Mayor Young, when nobody thought that casino gaming was the direction to go in. That's been a huge plus for the city over the last several years. But when you look at property tax, when you look at income tax, they are both gone south. When you look at revenue sharing from the state, that has also gone south. So all of our revenue streams are less than we ever predicted.
Is the state working with us to come up with some new methodologies for revenue streaming?
I would say no, in my opinion. I think we get a lot of lip service from Lansing in terms of what they're going to do to help, but that hasn't come through yet.
Are they roadblocking our abilities to do revenue streaming?
I don't think they're roadblocking, because I think what they're doing is really trying to get their house in order. And at the same time, I think they're doing a lot of PR work in terms of what they want to do for Detroit. But in terms of putting our hands on something and saying, here's a revenue stream that we didn't know about, or something that the state could help us with, that hasn't come through.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, we're cutting, and you've already announced the police and fire. Those are like core city services. And we have massive issues of crime, not only in Detroit, but all across urban America. I want to make that very clear. People don't really know what's going on in Chicago. I mean, they killing folk in Chicago worse than they were in any war we've ever been in. But it still does not allay the fact that we have issues. So when you talk about cutting police and fire, when you're talking about city services, what are your priorities, and how are we really going to be impacted?
Well, I've protected public safety up to this point. Now that we have the financial agreement with the state, I have to run the city and make sure I deliver the budget. Because if I don't do that, then the prospect of sending an emergency manager in or bankruptcy is still over our heads.
Is bankruptcy bad, Mr. Mayor? I've heard people say that let us go. I mean, Mitt Romney talks about structured bankruptcies. He said let Michigan go bankrupt. I mean, General Motors and Chrysler, they went. I mean, is that a bad scenario?
I think it's a bad scenario. What happened with the automotive industry is that there were a lot of money that was provided to them by the federal government.
Okay.
That's not going to happen with the city of Detroit. So I think bankruptcy is not the way to go. I think it would impact not only Detroiters, but the entire southeastern Michigan area, and probably the state of Michigan also. The interest rates would go up. Any borrowings that we would do, if we could do it, would all have a heavy interest rate to it.
How do you see moving forward with the cuts that are being proposed and the cuts that are going to occur now? What's going to be the lasting impact on the city?
I think we've got to, first of all, get our financial house in order. And there's going to be a negative impact on services. Let's not fool anybody. I don't lie to anybody about that. You know, when I look at public safety, police and fire represent 65% of our budget. So as much as I try to protect them, I'm now at a position where I can't totally protect them, but I want to try to minimize the impact on them as best I can, and I think we're doing that.
My guest is Mayor Dave Bing, City of Detroit, dealing with a morass of issues, trying to develop some solutions for the quality of our lives. We'll be right back following this.
You're watching Let the Record Reflect with the Detroit Branch NAACP, celebrating 100 years of civil rights and social justice advocacy.
Welcome back to Let the Record Reflect. My guest is the Honorable Mayor of the City of Detroit, Mr. Dave Bing. We're talking about the city and the current condition. We're just talking before we took that break about the unions and the impact and the bargaining and all that. So continue what you're saying.
You know, we entered into negotiations with all of our unions at the end of last year, and I think made a lot of progress to the point where we signed tentative agreements. As I went to the state, because the state has the final say, I went to the state, and they were okay with the economics that we had negotiated, but they were not pleased with work rule changes. So they said, we're not going to sign off on this. So everything that we had agreed upon, they didn't agree with, and that put us into the situation where we are today. And it's unfortunate, because I think we were developing a very strong, trustful relationship with our union workforce.
It puts you in a real bad situation, Mr. Mayor, because I too believe that you had come to a point where labor had never come before. They had never come as far as they come today. And this is a labor town, it's a labor state, it's a labor region. This is the birthplace of labor. So you know there's going to be entrenchment. And so now it's a question of credibility. I mean, because from their perspective, agreements were made, now agreements were broken. There's no, how do you regain that? And what What has to happen in order to effectuate a new bridge?
Well, I think you got to continue to talk. We have to continue to communicate. We have to continue to share information, because if we don't bridge this gap, then we're all doomed as far as I'm concerned. So we want to go back and start talking to the unions. They were aware that the state really pushed back on the TAs that we had agreed upon. So they were aware of that. But still, nobody likes it. Whenever you have to take a cut, whenever there's going to be a negative impact on your paycheck, on your health care costs, nobody likes that. But in order for us to move forward, we've got to figure out how to rebuild trust, how to rebuild this bridge to get to where we need to go.
Does the state owe us $224 million?
I think the agreement that was made under the Archer administration, where we were going to decrease our tax rate over a period of time and freeze the revenue sharing that the state was going to provide us, that was an agreement by two different administrations. I'm in office now, and there's a new governor in office. I still believe that the state owes us $224 million. The state is saying no, that they don't have to adhere to the agreement that was made some time ago. The state has their own problems, but whether or not we're going to get it, I still want to go after it. There may be different ways to go after different streams of revenue from the state, but the state has made it very clear that they don't think they owe us that money and not going to pay
But
it.
we think they owe us the money, because even you may not sign it, but you agreed to it, and gentlewoman's agreements have been adhered to by all administrations, and now something, this one is not being adhered to. But moving on, because I know time is short. I mean, some folk are saying that it's going to take a special kind of mayor to save Detroit. Maybe Detroit should have a white mayor, and maybe riding on a white horse, 2 silver pistols, and a white hat, and he can save Detroit. What do you think about that?
You know, my position is this. There are a lot of people who love our city who think that they can help. I thought that I could, and I think that I have, but the magnitude of the problem is so great, it's so broad, it's so deep, that I don't care who it is. One individual can't come in here and save anything.
Right.
So you got to have a team of people. I've put a team of people together that I think are very capable, very professional, very knowledgeable, and they need to stay in place. From a leadership standpoint, you know, you don't hear people, and I've heard you say this, I believe, that you don't see people in other cities and municipalities around Detroit that are primarily white saying, can a black person come in
Now, I've never
there?
seen a hurt that.
Yeah, so.
I mean, we've had white mayors since we've been elected mayors. Grosse Pointe, Dearborn, Rochester, you know, Bloomfield Hills, all the hills, they've never had a black mayor. So the question can be shifted.
Yeah.
Should they have a black mayor, and is Michigan ready for a black governor? I mean, if you're going to play that card, let's play the whole deck, not just a selective card. If you had to do it over, Mr. Mayor, would you do it again, knowing what you know now? Would you take this run? Would you take that shot? Would you drive up the middle of Detroit?
The answer is yes, because I think Detroit deserves more than what we have today. And it's just unfortunate, and people will act like under this administration, we caused the problem. We came in here to try to fix the problem. That problem existed for the last 30 or 40 years. We didn't just get here overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight, but we've done a lot of things in terms of fixing the problem.
There was a fellow named Gribbs and Kavanaugh way back that had a similar problem. Now it's on Bain, who has to deal with this messed up thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate your being here. Thank you for watching Let the Record Reflect. You can call us at 313-871-2087.